How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel, Pete's Carport. On today's video, we're going to be changing out the cam oil tubes on my subscriber's 1998 Mercedes 500 SL. Now, he had a crazy tick noise, and we went ahead and took care of our driver's side, which is our left side here in the US, and that fixed most of the problem. I went ahead and ordered 8 more oil tubes because it takes 8 on each side, and we're going to be going ahead and changing out our passenger side, which is our right side here. And hopefully all the little tiny ticks will go away, because there is a slight tick still there, and a lot of times that is caused by a loose oil cam tube, which is where the gasket meets. So we're going to change them all out. That way we know everything's good to go. We're going to be using these Euro Parts metal ones here because I was able to purchase them right at AutoZone. They were right around 10 bucks a piece. That you can order different styles of these too. They do have the plastic replacements. I prefer the metal ones, and that's what I'm going to go with. This is the part number in case you're looking to change them out. But it's a very similar process too. If you have a w140, any of the 500 series will be almost identical to this because they're almost identical motors across the board. So let's go ahead and get set up. What I'm going to do is pull my hood up all the way to make it easier to access. I'm going to show you guys the entire process. Now, as for tools, you won't need a whole lot, but you will need a 5mm Allen key. I like this style here because I can attach it to my cordless ratchet here, and you guys will see that in the video. You also need an 11mm socket. Now, I went with a small one, and I got a swivel attachment, and you guys will see why, because there is one area that's hard to get. I also threw in an extension, and then you'll need a torque key. So this is going to be a EP10 Torx. Now, you can get away with probably a socket. That's just to take off the nuts that hold down the plastic case, and you'll see that here in just a second. I always like to have a magnet so I can pull some of the bolts out. And then I like to have pliers in case I drop something or need to pull something out of a tight area. And we are going to go ahead and lock tight the valve cover gasket bolts back down. You guys will see all of that. So let's go ahead and get set up and get started. Okay, before we remove our valve cover, I want to mention some key points. So one major thing is we got to remove this ground wire here to pull back these wires. And when you do that, this wrap here is very brittle and can fall down in there. I like to vacuum it out before pulling this valve cover off and have that out of the way. So you don't want anything falling down into the engine. Now, you can keep your spark plugs in there. This will pull off. The second big thing is you want to change out your valve cover gasket. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. We are not changing ours out because these were recently changed, and I had very good success reusing the one that was on this side without any leaks, and he's been driving it now for about 5,000 miles. So I'm pretty confident that this one's going to be the same. So we do not have that currently, but you do want to be prepared to change that out. And if you're changing out these oil cam tubes, you might as well go ahead and change out your timing chain guides. Now, these were just changed out. He found a receipt for those previously, so we're not going to change those out, and they look really good on that side, so we're going to also trust that those have been changed out. But those are two key things that you want to make sure you have ready. If you're going to be doing all this work, you can go ahead and change out that valve cover gasket and your timing chain guides at the same time. So let's move forward and remove our valve cover. Okay, so we saved the hardest one for last, and that's because we have to take off our timing chain guide right here, and that's why you might as well do it at this point if it needs to be done. And then we can access these bolts. So not a real big deal. We'll be able to get that one out, but that's just to get that last one out. Now, as I mentioned, I did not torque any of these down. I just kind of tightened them up, but it's about 12 Newton meters, I think is what I found online, which is right around 8 foot-pounds of torque. None of my wrenches go that low that I currently have. So we're gonna go ahead and do what I've always done and get them pretty snugged up. Right around 10 foot-pounds is about what I probably snug them up to, but you don't wanna over tighten them. You just wanna make sure they're not loose and that they're gonna not fall out. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. And then same thing with the valve cover gasket. It's a pretty small amount, I think 8 Newton meters, and none of my wrenches go that low. So what I've always done is crisscross pattern, tighten them up until I felt it was pretty snug. You don't want to over tighten any of these things. As you can tell, these are very small torque specs on these. So just make sure you get them to where they all feel like they're not going to pull off. So let's go ahead and move forward. And if you have a torque wrench that goes that low, I highly suggest using it. That way, you know, you're within spec. So let's move on, get that last one out. And that is exactly why you want to make sure you swap out your timing chain guides when you do this. As you guys saw there, that was super brittle. It just broke off. I wasn't going to show you exactly how to change these because I was going to pop it off quickly and pop a new one on. I don't have a great technique to it, but obviously that was so brittle it just fell apart. Now, I have a parts car, and the part is the same, thank God, because we just checked the part number on here in case you need that part number. And our 91 happen to have the exact same guides, and these ones are fairly new, very easy to take off. And what this does is it slides into over these little clips here and into there, and you can press down with a screwdriver while pulling up on these. So you want to pull these up, be very careful, have them like right there, and at that point you can take like a flathead screwdriver and press down on those and you can pull it apart. But as you saw, it can get very brittle, and so be prepared that it could break. Luckily I have a spare I can swap in here. But we didn't have that on the other side, so I'm guessing they might have changed one side on this, but never ever go by what somebody says. This is a great example of that. So now we can actually access these two bolts that we're trying to get to. I was hoping I could loosen up everything and get to it, but unfortunately we do have to take off these bolts, or at least loosen them up. So let's go ahead and do that, get that last oil cam tube in, put our oil chain guide back on, and move forward. Okay guys, this is gonna be the moment of truth. We're gonna go ahead and try to start it up. Now, before it had a slight tick still after we changed out our driver's side. The driver's side had a completely blown out one. Now, where it'll blow out is typically on the end here. These ones were all just kind of loose, which will create more of that slight ticking noise you'll hear sometimes. So hopefully this eliminates all that, because now we've got them all changed out. Let's go ahead and start it up and hear what it sounds like. Oh yes, that is a clean sounding engine, guys. That definitely eliminated all that slight ticking noise. Now it sounds like a brand new motor. We just need to clean this thing up. So next up for me to do on this, guys, off camera, is to go ahead and clean down this engine bay, since we finally got all this stuff out of the way. And we'll continue working on this car and all the other cars, and hopefully some of these videos help you guys out. You guys have an awesome day, a blessed week, and I'll catch you on the next video.